This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the best place to build a beautiful website. So yeah, you can hear me, but can you see me? Hello, my name's CG Matter, aka a man with an extremely weak mustache, and I'm gonna teach you how to grow facial hair in under 30 days because if you don't want to be not a man and you want to be a man instead, something to be feared and respected and all this, you're not gonna have any authority without facial hair. So how do you make facial hair? Not in 30 days because that takes too long, but digitally, well, this is a tutorial that's gonna show you how to do that. You're just gonna need Blender and a model of your head and maybe watch the head tracking tutorial because that teaches you not only how to get a head but also how to track it. I think those are all the prerequisites, so let's begin. So before we start violating the laws of nature by growing facial hair extremely quickly, we first need to specify where we want that hair growth to be. We're going to do this by using weight paint, which automatically creates a vertex group for us, and unless you want to be walking around with like half a mustache or something, I recommend enabling X symmetry to speed things up significantly. In fact, my calculations tell me it's going to be about twice as fast. And also, instead of using the blur brush for smoothing, just use the smooth command because again, this is much faster. And yeah, let's grow some hair. I mean, that's what you came here for, right? Okay, so we made a vertex group to define where we want our hair to be, but to actually make it exist, we need to make a hair particle system so that there are particles that the hair can grow from. To do this, what we're gonna do is we are gonna make a particle system set to hair, and then for the vertex group, just make sure that we set it to the one that we define for the density, the length, and everything else, so that everything is driven by this kind of mask thing that we've created. And yeah, it's looking crazy as is right now, but just to fix that, you take the length, you bring it down until it's roughly like mustache length, and you can add in more particles. But what really makes this look realistic is actually grooming and parting the mustache, whatever. Just go to particle edit mode and using the comb brush, just brush the mustache to one side and the other. Depending on what you want to do, you're going to go for different looks. You might use the puff brush to move the hair particles away or towards the surface normal. Something like the length brush if you want to make like a Fu Manchu where like parts of the mustache are longer than others. Point is, you're going to groom it depending on the kind of mustache that it is you want to make. Now you're going to notice that when we go back to object mode, we still don't have that many hair particles, and you could like bump up the number, but of course this would slow everything down, so this is not what we want to do. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to enable children, which kind of interpolates hair particles in between hair particles. Either way, pick some children, make them interpolated, and this is where we can add in a lot of randomness, a lot of roughness, a lot of kink. Personally, I just kind of put in random numbers for these kinds of things, but just mess around with roughness, mess around with curl, with kink. And if you want to add in more particle systems for like hair and beards and stuff like that, you just kind of repeat the process. Each one's going to be its own particle system. And finally, if you want to do any kind of hair dynamic stuff where the hair is actually moving subtly, you just enable hair dynamics and then cache a simulation, where I don't really mess with these settings too much because the ones out of the box work pretty well. But yeah, normally I don't mess with hair dynamics. So let's move on to making this thing look good with materials and rendering and stuff like that. We've made it to the final phase of the tutorial, which means before we continue, it's very important to stretch. So I want you to stretch with me, okay? 3 seconds. It opens up the capillaries, your third eye. It's good to stretch, just do it. Okay, how do we make a material? Well, to do this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop in a principled BSDF for the head, and then a principled hair BSDF for the hair, and then the hair info node can be used to kind of distinguish between the two, so you just mix these together. And for the principled hair BSDF, just change the mode to melanin right away, because this is a more natural way to pick the color of the hair, where low melanin means kind of like whitish hair, like Gandalf, and then the other end of the spectrum is black. You just pick a melanin level that's good. That is a hard word to say. Pick a melanin level that's good for you. Also add in some random color because this kind of makes it more realistic. You can see even here, not all the hairs are necessarily the same color, right? There's supposed to be some variation. And if instead of the scenario you want just the hair where you don't want the head at all you need to do is disable this in viewport rendering, and then also rendering. You don't want to see the emitter, and this is just going to leave you with the hair particle system, which you can render on top of whatever footage. If you're using the dots or whatever, you just slap it on top, and there you go. That's a tutorial. You learned how to make a mustache. Congratulations. So believe it or not, the reason this video took so long to make, over a week, which is, longer than it usually takes, is because originally there was another edit that I decided to scrap, which I do sometimes. Sometimes I look at it, I'm like, it's not interesting, it's not entertaining, so I throw it away. That being said, I do still have some of the footage, so deleted scenes, they are going to be playing in the corner as I tell you about the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. And Squarespace, if you haven't heard about them before, which I'm sure you have, is a service that lets you make websites without any of the coding, without any of the nonsense. You can just use pre-made templates and then mess around with them until you get what you want, so you don't need to do any of that coding stuff. It's just easy, it's streamlined, and my website, www.cgmatter.com, was in fact made and is currently made with Squarespace, so you can check out an example of the kind of website you can make over there, and some features you might be interested in. I mean, you're probably going to be interested in these if you're making a website. Squarespace has analytics, right? So you can track who's going to your website, where they're from, stuff like this. Additionally, you have email campaigns, so you can send out a message or a promotional or whatever to your audience or customers or whatever it is that you're going for. So these are things that Squarespace has. And while Squarespace is already affordable at an annual subscription at less than $10 a month, I'm about to make that deal a whole lot sweeter, so listen up. If you click my link in the description, you can save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So use that link if this is something you are interested in. And otherwise, thanks for watching the tutorial. Moving on to new things.